Hiya Five. So just to recap what we did in the past 2 weeks, we've done our Kirigami flowers, our Kirigami forest. If you don't have these or they've been misplaced, don't worry, but I'm just using these as an example of how we're going to build up the layers. We're going to now work on a section here, and if you kind of think about a view, a landscape as it were, you will probably see flowers in the foreground, then you might see a forest of trees behind. And then I thought it'd be nice to do is we're going to build in a city. So we're going to do buildings, maybe 2 layers of buildings here for the next stage. And we're going to use the method of paper chains. So you might have done paper chains before with people, but we're going to make a paper chain of buildings and cities. For this, I'm going to use some coloured paper, and then I'm going to probably put a white behind it, or maybe another colour. You can use white paper, you can use coloured paper, whatever you think would be most effective for your image as you're building it. So let's get started. So, I made my forest last week in A5, and I've now got an A4 piece of paper that's going to slot in behind, and the image is going to look like that. And I quite like how it changes. You can work smaller, you can do A5 so it fits neatly. If you'd like to, but I'm going to show you with A4. I'm going to first of all fold my A4 paper in half and cut it so I have 2 long strips. So I've got my 2 long strips. I'm going to put one to the side and I'm going to work on one at a time. I'm now going to fold this. Now you can fold this as many times as you like. I'm going to work like this. Now, because I want my buildings to be yellow, I'm going to make sure that I draw, because I'm going to draw on this too. I'm going to draw on the back. So if you have double paper that's 2-sided in colour, make sure when you do the drawing that you make sure that's on the back so we don't see any pencil marks. So I've just folded that one in half. I'm going to fold it in half again. Trying my best with one hand, trying to make sure it is lined up as best as it can, especially on the edges, because as a paper chain, if you've made one before, you have to keep the edges connected. So make sure when you fold it, it's as well as it's connected as it can be. I'm going to start off with a 4-folded piece of paper here, as you can see, and I think on my second piece I'll go for an 8, which will be where I fold it again. But we'll start off with a 4. We don't want to make it too tricky for the first one in case it goes wrong. And then we'll go on to the second. So, a few rules with drawing this. I'm going to probably try and draw in 2 different heights of buildings here. And I'm going to make sure that my buildings connect. So, they have to connect on this side and that side. If you cut it out, avoiding the side, or draw it avoiding the side, they won't be a chain. They'll just be individual buildings. You can use those, but we're looking for a chain. I'm now going to draw mine out to show you how we create the paper chain city. Okay, so here is my, I've actually put 3 buildings in this one. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out just the top outline of these buildings. And then I'm going to cut out these small sections here. These are going to create kind of a window effect. These ones in the middle, I'll show you that in a moment, a slightly different method for the ones in the middle. But I'm going to cut out my outline here, and I'm going to cut out these sections here. So it gives the, like I said, gives the effect of a window and also the effect of a door as well. Just started cutting out some things here. And what's great is if I have drawn it in pencil and when I've cut it's gone off the pencil line or I've changed it slightly, no one's going to know. So don't worry of things like here that you've cut it out when the pencil mark changes. Now, let's talk about cutting out these sections here for the windows. Snip down the sides and then you might find you've got a bit of a loose tab there. Then just snip it off sideways that way to create that work if you're finding cutting the corners tricky. So I've cut out my buildings and the side sections. To do this one, what you need to do is just to fold it in half very gently through the centre of those squares, or just about centre, and then cut those out as you did the sides. I've just unfolded that middle section there where now I've got my windows, and I've got all my other sections here that have been cut out. I'm then going to unfold it, which is the fun bit, because then you can then just see how your cityscape is forming. I'm then going to come and bring in my forest here. Now you could add these on top slightly or just behind. Now for my second layer, I'm going to add in a bit more detail. This can be what I would say is my further back layer. I'm then going to add in a bit more detail to another layer here to give it, to kind of show how the layers are changing. And so this would explain that this one is further away because it has less detail. So the next one I'm going to do is going to have more detail because that looks like that part of that city is closer. And this will start to really create the layered effect that we want. Okay, so moving on to the next one, it's a very similar method of working, but we're going to make the paper layers go to 8. So I've just done 2, and I'm doing this again, which will make it 4. Make sure I press in because the paper's getting thicker, so press in the fold. And finally, do it again, so the 4 times 2 becomes 8. Oh, hang on, I need to line this up. I've got that line now. So I've got 8. So I'm going to try and put 2 buildings in here, and I'm going to work with smaller details and smaller cuts because it then will make the building look more detailed. For this, if you want to be inspired by famous buildings or a famous city that you know, if you want to look at an image online, feel free. You could put in a landmark in here. You could put in Big Ben or House of Parliament. You could maybe even put in half the London Eye, possibly, if you can make that work. But try and really think of adding in layers, but you must keep your sides connected. Okay, really important. And make sure you've got some detail that comes in from the side, like the cutout windows or doorways, to help this look even more detailed than the first layer. So I've squeezed on 3. I've taken inspiration from Big Ben, but I've also been aware that I don't want to make things too fiddly to cut. So I've made that quite a chunky tower there. Same method of cutting out the shapes, and I've made a slightly lower part there, but I've still got the sides connected. All the side windows I can do. I just need to take my time with them being small. I can then try my best to fold the paper in half again for these centre ones. And I'm going to try and then fold the paper again to make that circle be cut out as well, but we will see how we go. Already with the more detailed skyline, and it is springing out a bit, that is fine. I can see this is going to be much more interesting. So I'm going to continue now with doing my cut out details. All my side pieces cut out now. I'm now going to fold just through the centre here, and it will be trickier because I've got lots of layers of paper to cut out these bits, and then I'm going to fold this one as well in a moment. So that's those ones done. I'm now going to try my best to fold, and I'll try to do it in a moment with 2 hands, but fold through the halfway of that circle and cut up that circle to finish this side off. Okay, so I've tried to cut that circle out. It's kind of gone to more like a diamond, but it's best I could do, and it's very thick paper. So let's just unravel and see how this more detailed city is going to look. Hey, look at that. Paper everywhere. There we go. So we've got my more detailed city there, which looks great. I can then bring in the less detailed city to go behind it. And if you wanted to, you could flip these, but just beware, you've got pencil marks, so you might want to, you'll need to rub those out really if you want a quality effect. So here we go, it's double layer city. We've then got the forest and the flowers. So to finish these off, you're more than welcome to, and I think I will, to keep them all together, I'm going to stick my cities behind, and I'll probably add in a little bit of white paper as well. I've got a little bit here. I need a bigger piece though. But I'll add some white paper behind to show the contrast. I could even add in a dark colour because my tablecloth looks quite good behind there too. So I'll see what I've got and I will finish this off and stick it down. Okay, so I've just used a pink paper that I had that was the same for the flower, and I quite like how I'm using a selection of colours that are the same. So I've got yellow, pink and blue, then blue and white, and then I've got yellow and pink again. So this is my image being built up. I'm quite liking the effect. It's all done with Kirigami, so that's to do with folding and cutting paper. I'm hoping you'll create something similar to the layered city. So you've got the detailed city, which we did second, and the less detailed city that we did first. That one's a really good one to practice on before you go into more detail. Next week we're then going to build up a sky to finish off this Kirigami paper sculpture. Be sure that you upload your photos to Teams so I can give you some feedback on your cities. Thank you.